Oh, yeah. Texas Fight. That's right. It's a special edition. You know it. I got Steve Sarkisian in here. Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Thank you for joining us. Coach Steve Sarkisian, thanks so much for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. This is pretty cool. You know, I was kind of going back over some of my notes here and looking back at your career and how impactful you were to Coach Brown's era, and back to back, first 11 win seasons for him, and that's huge, man. So it's great to be on with you.
Oh, it's great. It's great that we finally get to link up here this way. I've been a big fan of you forever, and just so you know, like Texas pride hard here at NBC. I drive everybody crazy. Anytime Texas comes on, I just go Texas Fight, yeah, and it just drives everybody crazy. They're sick of hearing me sing it by now. But,
well, you get to brag a little bit more these days, so you're probably getting a little more obnoxious, which is okay.
That's why I like you. Exactly right. You've allowed me to open my big mouth again, and I got a big mouth, so I'm good at that. That's what they pay me to do. But I want to get into the resurgence of the Texas Longhorns and what you did, and like you said, kind of brought it back to its glory years, like we had it with Mac Brown, and of course times before that. What was the first order of business to kind of get Texas football, the culture, to where you wanted it to be?
Yeah, you never know. You get told why you got hired, excuse me, right, from an administration or whatever, but you never really know as a coach, why did I get hired? Like, why am I here? What was going on? What were the issues? Obviously, there were good coaches here before and previous staffs and so on and so forth. Why wasn't it working? And sometimes it can take 3 months, 6 months, a year to figure out exactly what's going on there. But I thought something interesting as we grew as a program. When we got here at the end of our first school year, I was here in January of 21, which is in the middle of COVID. We just finished that kind of awkward 2020 COVID football season. And so 21 rolls around. At the end of that school year, Chris Delconte, our AD, presents me with our team GPA. And we had a 2.37 team GPA. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Texas is a good school. Don't get me wrong. Number 3 public university, all the cool stuff going on, but 2.37 doesn't feel right. Then we go 5-7 that fall, and we are losing some heartbreakers. I mean, we've got leads in 5 consecutive games that we lose in the second half. So obviously disappointing. And then we send 2 players to the NFL Combine, and we get 0 players drafted. So that was year 1. And it's like, okay, this thing isn't just about the talent in the locker room or what we're doing in the academic services department or how we're developing our players for the NFL. This is a mindset, right? This is an approach. This is a connectivity. This is what's important to you. And are we recruiting the right types of players with the mentality that are like-minded people that can drive each other and push each other up? And inevitably, what happens at the end of year 2? We have a 2.78 team GPA. We go 8-5. We get 5 players drafted. At the end of year 3, we have a 2.98 team GPA. We go 12-2. We win the Big 12. We go the CFP semifinals. We lose to UW. We get 11 guys drafted, which was a school record. And at the end of year 4, we have a 3.27 team GPA. We go 13-3. We make it to the SEC championship game. We go to the CFP semifinals again, and we sent 14 guys to the NFL Combine. So this idea that I think that we've kind of captured here is like who you are some of the time is who you are all the time, I think is really important, especially in Austin, in the brand. And we got more, Chris, there's more than 2 million people here now.
Right.
We're the largest city in the U.S. with no pro sports, major sports teams. And so these guys have to carry themselves in a different way now more than ever. You throw NIL on top of it. There's all these things. And so I just think I'm really proud of our players. I'm proud of our staff because they've not only bought into the idea of what the culture we wanted, but man, they've elevated it in a really tumultuous time of college football. And I couldn't be more proud of where we sit today.
I did not expect that answer. I really didn't. Football, grades, that's what we're looking at, stuff like that. Okay, so you get to that. How do you find these guys? What's some of the litmus test as far as making it on to, your recruiting and the guy you gotta wanna go after that fits like what you want from a Texas Longhorn?
Yeah, I think there's twofold, right? You can turn on the tape and you're like, okay, this kid can play, right? There's a distinct disparity, right? It's
right.
like
Yeah.
You turn on your tape, like that guy can play. You turn on my tape, they're like, I don't know. Let's go with the Simms guy, right? He's a little more. He's got height. He's got speed. You know, you got.
Don't sell yourself short there, Mr. BYU quarterback. You are right.
But you know that there's some the turning on the tape, looking at the measurables, the hand size, the arm length, all those types of things are pretty easy things to look at. And then, but there's so many great players around the country, obviously in the state of Texas where we major in recruiting, but now our brand has really grown to where we're nationwide. There's so many great players. We just hold on to this adage, we never sacrifice character for talent. And if you really look for the signs and see the signs, I really think the young men we recruit tell us who they are. But you got to be willing to take in the information. And that's hard, especially for assistant coaches, because they get connected to them, right? And so that's the first part. And the second part, they tell you who they are by how much they want to serve others, how much they want to play for the guy next to them. You know, and there's a selfish side of all of us, right?
Sure.
But how much are they willing to be a great teammate? And then the third piece is, what is their competitive spirit? Right? Do they truly? Because as you know, when you choose to come to the University of Texas, it's not you're not forced to do it. When you make that choice, we're all held to a standard that is much different than anywhere else in the country. It's championships or bust. And so you have to understand that mentality, that mindset, that work ethic on a daily basis, and have that competitive juice, those competitive juices flowing. And it's got to be natural, right? If we have to fabricate it for you, this probably isn't the place for you. And that's okay. But what we've been able to do, I think, is assemble a highly competitive roster of really good people who want to help and serve one another and that are accountable to other people. All the while knowing they're all really talented, or they wouldn't have made the first cut anyway. And so it's been a great journey. You know, we've recruited the high school ranks really well. We haven't majored in the transfer portal, but the guys that we have gotten have turned out pretty good. You know, we're hitting on about a 50% rate there. And we're continuing to grow as a program. So it's been a ton of fun.
Well, 15 guys at the combine this year. You could have 15 players drafted. That speaks to you. And let me just tell something else that speaks to you more than anything else out there at all. When we were at the combine, I think we interviewed 6 or 7 of the guys from Texas. And I said this on air, and I'll say it again. The NBC people, everybody that worked behind the scenes, producers, directors, the number one thing we came away with was how impressive the Texas kids were. How they handled themselves. The answers were thoughtful, well thought out, really an impressive group. And that's a credit to you, Coach. That really is. It's special. And you could see that. And I'm not shocked by the results on the field after meeting some of the guys that come from your team the last 2 years. So I just wanted to say that to you nonetheless.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
The other part of this that I always hear about you, and even John Bianco has said this, the great, our great SID there at the University of Texas, who was there. You know, his hair's a little grayer than it used to be, but he's still there. but not only from him, other players, coaches who have worked with you, your team building, right? I've always kind of heard that too. Like you find ways to unite guys during the year, training camp, whatever. What's your approach there? And give us an example of kind of what you do to make that process work.
Yeah, we, you know, the first thing we do is we do these things called Culture Wednesdays, which probably not a great term. I mean, because it wasn't this thought out, man, we're going to put this great name on this thing. Like, it's really simple, right? Culture Wednesdays. And we just pick a topic, you know, we pick a topic every Wednesday morning. We run and lift in the summer on Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. You know, Wednesdays are about your mindfulness, your recovery, and then our culture. And so we pick a topic. You know, the first topic, let's call it, is tell us your life story. And not only do we want to hear your life story, tell us your 4 H's, right? Tell us about your home life. Tell us about the hero in your life. Tell us about a hardship you had to overcome, and tell us an honor you've received. I always go first. And I go in front of the team and I tell my life story. And I've got a real story to tell, and they don't get the PG version. You know, I give it to them real, because I want them to understand what it looks like and feels like to be vulnerable and to be honest. And then we break up into about 10 subgroups and they start sharing and they start going through it. And then the next week we'll come back and we'll do, all right, tell us the worst day of your life and why, and tell us the best day of your life and why. And then we'll go, and then I go first, and then we break up and we share and we mix up the groups. The next week we might do a gratitude tree, and we just talk about the things in our life that we need to be grateful for. But all I'm really trying to do is to create a connection amongst the players so that when a guy's struggling, a guy can look at him and say, you know what, I remember him talking about his mom back home and what she's going through. Or I remember, that the situation he had to deal with, the knee injury from last season, and how that recovery's gone for him. But on the same token, as we're doing those things, these kind of like group sessions, right? This Culture Wednesdays, we go try to do things that are fun too, and to get them connected, because so many things, in my opinion, what's happened through NIL, these guys have had to grow up really quickly.
Right.
18, 19 years old, and they're expected to manage money and do all these things. And how about let's go play putt-putt golf? How about let's go out to Bill Duvall's house and jump off the dock?
Yeah, I hear you there.
And have some fun. Like let's go do escape rooms and try to solve this puzzle to get ourselves out of the escape room. Like let's do things that are a lot more fun together that you used to do as a kid, that we used to do in college when we weren't getting that NIL money, and that you had to find the things to do that were entertaining. And so we try to do that as well. I try to keep them young, but I try to get them connected as a team.
Yeah, that's great stuff. I hear it about the program all the time, and that definitely adds to the positive views and the vibes that I get from all the players and people around it. It's really cool that you do that. You hit on NIL, right? And I do want to hit on that just for a second, because you were coaching before any of this, and now you're right in the midst of it, and we're Texas and all that, and we got money too, which I like. I like that. You hear that? College football, we got money at Texas. But how has that made your life maybe easier or complicated? Like, give us a little bit of both, because it's just such a thing I still can't wrap my head around if I was in college and getting paid money like that.
Yeah, I think it's been odd. The 2020 season, I'm the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and it's the COVID season, which was unique and wild for everybody.
Right.
And I accepted the job at the University of Texas sight unseen. I had never been to Austin a day in my life.
Wow.
I'm Googling it with my wife. Like, okay, there's like buildings and a freeway. I didn't know if I was going to Lubbock or Austin. I didn't know where I was going. Right.
Right.
And then inevitably, I take the job and I finish coaching through the national championship game with Alabama against Ohio State and Miami. Then I arrive, and I really feel like from that moment forward, it's just been a constant like Rolodex of changes that are happening in college football, leading ourselves all the way up into, we had the transfer portal, we had conference realignment, we had NIL and what that looked like, and then the collectives that followed when NIL got granted, to now we're talking about revenue sharing coming, to potential more college football playoff expansion and realignment and what that looks like. And so it's been constant. So as I've been kind of navigating myself through it all, I appreciate NIL, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't.
Right.
I think the players have historically, we all have worked really hard, but the money that college football has generated for a lot of universities has been exponential from wherever it's gone, and the TV deals and all these things. So the fact that we can pay the players now, I think, is a good thing. I'll be honest with you, I really do. These guys. Right. They deserve it.
Right.
The fact that we're starting to put some guardrails around this thing is probably a good thing as well. It was starting to get to where everybody was going to find a loophole to every little thing. But we've got more work to do, right? We've got to look at the calendar of our football season. So much of college football is stuck on the academic calendar, right? Where when you look at the NFL calendar of what that looks like, right? February to the end of January until the Super Bowl and start over. And so we've got to look at those things. We've got to look at our calendar as opposed to an academic calendar and really dive into, I'm not saying we have to do everything like the NFL, but surely they've done the research. They've done their homework.
Right.
And there's a lot of avenues that we can look at we have 2 portal windows right now, one in December, one after spring football practice, where my entire roster is a free agent. They're all available to go in. And that was really uncomfortable, right? Being in the playoffs and I have 9 guys go in the portal.
Right.
While that's happening, I'm going to go through spring practice. In the middle of spring practice, I might have players go into the portal because, hey, this wasn't what they thought it was going to be. I sure would love to have a free agency period like you do in the NFL, right?
Right.
That is after the season's completed, prior to spring practice, so you know what you're dealing with. And I sure would like to try to minimize some of the tampering that goes on, just like they do in the NFL, and have some really stiff penalties for teams that do tamper. So there's a lot of layers to this. But I've tried to think forward. I've tried to be a forward thinker with this thing and say, hey, okay, you got to adapt. Okay. And let's try to see the forest through the trees, what's coming. And then how do we want to attack this thing from a roster building perspective? How do we want to build our roster through the high school? How do we want to utilize the transfer portal? How are we going to, maximize our cap when that revenue sharing does come? How do we maximize NIL previously with the resources of Texas to build the roster the way, but yet recruit players that aren't coming here for the money, recruit players that want to come to the University of Texas for the opportunity to play in the NFL, to win championships here. And oh, by the way, get a good NIL deal. So there was a lot of layers to this. And I think I credit our administration for supporting us on it. But also I credit our staff, our support staff. We've had to expand our staff. We've got a whole scouting department now and recruiting department and a general manager. And we've got all these things now that are really starting to resemble the NFL.
Right.
And I don't think we're done. I think we're still going to move towards that direction.
Yeah, it seems like it. That was what I was going to ask you. I mean, you think we're at a part here where every college team's going to have a GM, basically, right? I mean, that's where we're at here. Yeah,
I think so. And like the NFL, that model is going to be different for each school, right? The model of the Bill Belichick in New England, where he was really the GM and the head coach, was one model, right? There's another model. I'll say when I was with the Raiders with Al Davis, he was the owner and the GM, right? So there's going to be some athletic directors that look at it that way. And then there's going to be some that is the GM reporting to the head coach, or is the GM reporting to the athletic director, or is it a true partnership where 2 guys come in together? So there's all these models in the NFL that you look to. It's just a matter of what best serves your university.
Do you have to make calls? Like I've talked to other college coaches, and they're with the NIL deal. They're kind of like, it gets to a point where I feel like I can't call so-and-so booster again and ask for more money. Is that something that you have to do? Is there a plan in place? Is there a big donor group that kind of is in charge of figuring that out themselves? How does that work, if you don't mind me asking something too uncomfortable there?
Yeah, well, we have our Texas One Fund, which was huge, and when you really look back at when the collective started,
right?
Okay, we were one of the originals, right? I don't know if you remember the Pancake Factory early on, which was for these offensive linemen to get paid. And again, I'm a forward thinker, Chris. Right. Okay, I'm thinking what's coming next. Then we started Horns for Hearts. And then we started the Texas One Fund, and that really the Clark Field Collective became Texas One Fund. So it's been kind of this evolving kind of process to get us to where we are. Naturally, you're going to have some donors that are much more engaging in the NIL space, and you're going to have some that are not. Some of the older donors, in their mind, that never was true in the space that we were in. They're more apt to help us build our new indoor that we're building right now. They're more apt to help us redo our locker room. They're more apt to help build the recruiting space here in Moncrief. So that's okay. Yeah. But there's this other side of where NIL became important. And so understanding those donors and tapping into those resources, but again, spreading the net in a way that you're spreading the net to people that it makes sense to. Right. And so I think it's been good, but I do think there's fatigue that has set in a little bit. Right. Yeah. I mean, wait a minute. My name's not getting put on a building, but I'm contributing to this thing. Where's my trophy and where's my ring? Right. I mean, everybody wants something, right? Nothing in this world is free. But in the end, we've had great support in the space. But I do think it's time to make this shift into the revenue share, to where a lot of that money now is coming from the university side, from the administrative side to pay the players, and that we're not having to go ask these donors this way. Now, there's still going to be some NIL, there's still fair market value, there's still these opportunities that will be there, but it just won't be as egregious as it was right before.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And so I got one more thing to ask you before I get into some of the guys about the draft, right? Because this is the number one question I get asked as Chris Simms, son of Phil Simms, who played quarterback at the University of Texas. And I think you can imagine where I'm going to go here is Arch Manning. Manning, that's all I get. Of course, because the Manning famous last name, and then my last name. Anywhere I go to the gym, I go to a restaurant, wherever I see somebody that's a Texas alum, we got him up here in the Northeast too, or just a football fan, it's always Arch Manning. What's up with Arch Manning? How good is he going to be? Blah, blah, blah. So you're the man, you're the legend there, you're coaching them. Kind of give us what are you excited about with this Arch Manning era about to start here?
Yeah, I think first of all, what a unique 2 years it was for Arch and Quinn.
Right.
When he first arrived, he's arrived, but then you realize he's a freshman, and it's like, man, this guy, we're just trying to figure out, 6-man protection here and how we're going to flipper this thing and do all the, we're going through the nuances of playing the position. Right. And all the while Quinn is dealing with that too. And so those two guys working together, I give them both a ton of credit, and their relationship I thought was huge in managing that. I think obviously it was great for Arch to get 2 starts last year. And started our SEC, first SEC game ever against Mississippi State while Quinn was dealing with the oblique strain. But in the end, I'll say this about Arch Manning. Are the physical tools there? No doubt about it. Is the work ethic there? No doubt about it. Is the brain there? No doubt about it. But what I probably appreciate most about him, it's the personality.
Yeah.
You take the last name off the back of his jersey. The guy is a great teammate. He's helping. It doesn't matter if he's the smallest guy in the room, the walk-on, he's a great friend to him. Or if you're the 5-star on your official visit, he's a great, he's a great friend to him, to the administration, to the community. And again, that's not because of the last name on the back of his jersey. That's just who he is. And I think inevitably what's come out of that is the players gravitate to him. And as you know, as a quarterback, like that's the most powerful thing.
Definitely.
When the team wants to play for you, not with you, but for you. And then when you as the quarterback can instill belief into that locker room, instill belief into the building, into the organization, and then ultimately into the fan base, that's why it's the most important position in sports.
That's right.
You assume such a responsibility above and beyond completing the curl route. It's you have to instill belief in everybody that we got a chance to win today. And I think he does that, but he does it not trying to, because that's just who he is on a regular basis.
It shows, and you're probably the 10th person that's kind of gone that way eventually. It's the man, the way he acts, the leader. The team loves him already. That's all I've ever heard about him. So that makes me excited. I'm glad to hear that. So we can keep dominating college football there, Sark. That's what we need. All right. So let's get into some of the guys. Let's talk about Quinn Ewers, because like you just said, it wasn't easy for him. He mentally had to go through Arch Manning hanging over his head and all that type of stuff. But break his game down a little bit, and like what's Quinn Ewers' superpower? The one thing you look at to go, ooh, he's special in that department.
His first of all, 3 years here, 3 different injuries throughout his time.
Yeah.
Arch comes in. As as I touched on earlier, largest city in the U.S. with no major professional sports. So we are the pro sports team. We are the NFL team here.
Right.
So the scrutiny at the quarterback position is at an all-time high in college football. The way he managed all of that, the way he handled it all, I think that in and of itself is like an NFL team's like, okay, we got a guy that's ready for a little bit more of the fire than maybe other guys are. But his quick release, his ability to make the short to intermediate throws is uncanny. I mean, this guy throws darts. The ball comes out of his hands so effortlessly, so just, and it's literally on point every single time.
Right. And
I give him credit. I mean, he worked at his craft too. He was a shotgun little more of an air raid type quarterback that came into the program and really worked on the nuances, the play action pass, the RPO game, the deep ball shots. And we saw him grow not only physically, but I think mentally and emotionally. It turned into a great leader for us. And so somebody's going to get a really good player that may be a little undervalued because of some of the injuries.
Yeah.
But I think somebody's going to get a really good player here, come a couple weeks for the NFL draft.
I feel like that with the injuries hurt him a little bit. And I'd love to just hear your take on this, or again, because I like Quinn Ewers. I got to rank quarterbacks, right? I make him my number 5 quarterback in the draft this year. I like the potential, too. I think there's some things he can even get better at that I look at and go, it's there. He just doesn't do it enough. And here's one of them, and I just would like to hear your take, is that I'd like to see him step on the gas pedal, throwing the ball with authority at times. That's kind of been my one knock, right, is maybe throws with touch, lays it out there a little too much. But do you believe he's got it in him to put a little more oomph on the ball on a more consistent basis?
I definitely think he does, and I think that, some of this idea of throwing a catchable ball, right? The whole Bill Walsh isms of throwing a catchable ball.
Right.
Sometimes we can go a little too far there of kind of feathering it, layering the ball to a guy that I think he's got plenty of arm strength. And we see those throws, those deep in cuts, the deep out throws that he makes. I mean, those are NFL throws that this guy can make. So I just think it's him tapping into to that aspect of his game, because he's going to need to. Those windows are going to get small real quick here in a few months in that first mini camp. So he's going to need to do that. But I think he's more than capable of doing that.
All right. That's good to hear. I have the same thought. I mean, you can look through games. You just got to look a little bit and you go, damn, that looks like a laser right there to me. He can do it. He just got to do it more. And I'm glad to hear you say that. Let me go to your receiver. That's, the hot topic right now, Mr. 4.29, right? I don't know. I was shocked he ran 4.29. Awesome football player, but like watching on TV, I never thought he was a 4.29 guy. Did that shock you guys when Marcus Golden ran that type of time?
Yeah,
Matthew, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. He the one thing about him is I think when we got him, he was a transfer from Houston for 2 years. And when we got him, he was dealing with the turf toe. So he was coming off a turf toe injury. And so we kind of got a real abbreviated version of him in spring practice. And then he kind of worked his way into training camp to get himself ready to go. And early in the season, he really wasn't the go-to guy yet. He was learning a new system. He was, I think he was still trying to figure out, when you're a Ferrari and there's something wrong with one of the tires, you're always going to be a little bit more hesitant with the foot.
Right.
But I thought halfway through the season, he really cut it loose. And the second half of this season, man, he really played fast. He played physical. He's always had strong hands, making contested catches. But the explosive play number really shot up the second half of the season, when I think he finally just went and cut it loose and stopped kind of worrying about the toe a little bit and gained confidence in the system. But 4.29 is blazing. I mean, that is a blazing fast time. The other thing I know, if you let him train for something and you give him, here's the fundamental, here's the technique, this is what you need to do, he's going to do it exactly right. And the one thing I think that it's impressed the NFL, it's not so much the time, it's that he's coachable. And that if you give him a set of, here's standards of how to do something, he's going to do it. That helps an NFL coaching staff say, hey, you know what, we can bring this guy in. He's going to do what we ask him to do. He's not going to say boo to anybody. He's just going to come work every day. And then you look up and he's having a great season or a great career because he just does what he's supposed to do.
I could see that. Getting to talk to him at the combine, he's very professional and about his business. I could see that, certainly what you're kind of describing there. All right, how about the other guy at receiver who was the big play guy kind of early on in the year, Mr. I'm going to break the combine record, Isaiah Bond, right? Break him down a little bit for us, because there are some things he does on film. He doesn't get the attention that Matthew Golden is getting, but, I mean, I do watch some stuff and go, wow, when I watch Isaiah Bond.
Kind of a tale of two seasons, right?
Right.
When you look at here down here is Matt Golden, who's coming off the toe injuries, figuring out. Here's Isaiah Bond. He's feeling healthy. In the first half of the season, he was playing lights out, and Matt was figuring it out. The second half of the season kind of went like this. Isaiah was dealing with a high ankle sprain the second half of the season that he just couldn't shake, and from the OU game all the way into the Georgia and the SEC championship game, we sit him versus Clemson. We try to get him back. But that just made the second half of the season. It was the first time in his career he's ever had to deal with a flat tire. As I said to him, it's like, so sometimes you have to learn how to fix that tire and what that feels like for him, but immense talent. I think, when you look at the speeds of even at the combine, yeah, he didn't run 4.29, but he was running over 24 miles an hour, had the fastest overall speed at that combine. So definitely has the top end speed,
right?
Can take the top off of defense, has played a lot of football and a lot of big time games here and at Alabama. So again, I think he's got a really bright future too.
Yeah, no doubt. He seems like he could be one of those guys that ends up being a steal in the middle of the draft somewhere there, and somebody gets a gem for him. The guy that I feel like when you were explaining the kind of players you want at the University of Texas, I don't know, the guy that comes to the forefront of my brain that I feel like just exemplifies that is Jahdae Barron, excuse me, right? And just how impressive he was in person, how smart, how charismatic he was, all of that was so impressive. And then he's awesome on the football field. But please talk to us all about Jahdae Barron and everything he brings to the organization.
Yeah, I think it's a real credit to, and I hate saying our culture because, but you got to remember, Jahdae was here for a year before we got here.
Right.
And when we arrived, who he was then is not who he is today, right? And that's part of where the culture, the development of the program, I think he's a guy that tapped into it, right? And took in all the opportunities that he had. And to see the growth for him, not only on the field, but off the field, the maturity, the physical growth, his ability to utilize, he's got a knack. He's got a football IQ that is elite. He played corner, he played nickel, he played safety, he played dime linebacker, multiple position guy, high football IQ, but not only multiple position, a playmaker, gets interceptions, causes fumbles, recovers fumbles, PBUs on critical downs, just a natural football player. And then off the field can speak almost like I'm speaking. I listen to his interviews. I'm like, I feel like I'm listening to me talk right now.
He's a professional. He is a professional.
It really is. So whoever gets this guy is getting a pro, right? He's a guy who's going to walk in and it's going to, where do you need me? I can go do that. And from week to week can play different spots. Reminds me a little bit of Minkah Fitzpatrick that way, where Minkah could do so many things when we were at Alabama. I think Jahdae can kind of be that same type of guy of, what do you need me to do this week? And I can get that done.
Yeah, right. Nickel, corner, safety, doesn't matter. Can do anything in the secondary is basically what you're saying. And that's what it looks like when you watch him on film there. All right, I know you got to go. Last one here, okay? Just last one. The big guys, that to me, I can still remember just 2 years ago going, wait, I think we're back, but man, they're going to play Alabama. Let me just see what their O-line and D-line look like compared to the Alabama guys. I remember on like the third play of the game, I was like, we look like they do. We're good. We're legit, right? So talk to me about hit a little on Alfred Collins, right, and Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks, the offensive tackle for all those out there, and then Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle for Texas, and just how that's transformed your team, the good big guys you got on the football team right now.
Yeah. Really, I don't want to steal it here, but I think we have three defensive front guys going into this draft that I'm excited about. Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, and Barron Sorrell, and defensive end.
Definitely.
I think all three of those guys, why I want to talk about those guys in particular, all three of those guys were with us for 4 years. Alfred and Vernon were here for a year before we got here, and then Barron Sorrell came in our first year. So they spent 4 years in our program. In those 4 years of our program, Moro Ojimo, Keandre Coburn get drafted. The next year, Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy get drafted. And now here comes their year to see these guys get drafted. So to really talk about a program and developmental program and growth at a position group and watching guys come and go and why the line of scrimmage is so important, that's a prime example. You're talking about 7 guys drafted in a 3-year span at that defensive line position. So proud of those guys. I think they're all going to be assets to teams. Kelvin Banks, hey, if I could say this is exactly what I want to recruit and how a player is supposed to be when he gets into our program, it's Kelvin Banks.
Yeah.
Who he is off the field, who he is on the field, the work ethic, the leadership. That's what a Longhorn is supposed to be. And I think going into a draft, when you're talking about drafting a left tackle in the NFL draft, yes, you got to have the physical attributes and you got to have the film to match, but you got to be consistent and you got to be reliable, right? After the quarterback, who's the most important guy on that offense, that left tackle to take care of the quarterback. And that's all he's been for us for 3 straight years. His second career start, he's starting as a true freshman. His second career start was against Alabama, and he was blocking Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and didn't give up a sack. So at that moment, I was like, okay, the moment's not too big for this guy.
Right.
He's going to have a bright future. And, I think we're watching it all play out before our very eyes.
Yeah, it's a testament to you. It's a testament to where you got the program right now, because it's rolling every year. I was one of those last year that was like, wait, how are we going to replace Devondre Sweat and the other big guy in the middle, Byron Murphy? How are we going to do that? But you got it going. I lied. I got one more thing, because I had heard this about you. Skill guys, right? And I'm doing this with my son a little bit right now. He's going to be a freshman in high school. He's got a chance. He could play quarterback a little bit, right? But we're in this era where they all want to just play the one sport all the time. Are you a believer in, especially the skill guys, playing some other sports when they're in high school?
I love other sports. Basketball, baseball, soccer, track and field. If he's a wrestler, like, you just find out to me about their competitive spirit. And that doesn't mean that, hey, they're going to do it their whole time through their career. But I think, hey, I'm sure when you were growing up, you were playing more than just football.
Definitely.
That's not the way it was when we were kids, right? And I get the whole specialty thing. But gosh, I sure feel like there's a lot more to be gained from competing rather than just training, because you've got to tap into that competitive spirit. And you may not be the best 200-meter runner, but you got to put your hand on that track, and you got to run, and you're running with 7 other guys around you, and you're trying to win. And so I just think there's something about the competitive spirit, whether it's on the basketball court, the soccer field, getting on the mound in baseball and pitching, that not necessarily we find out about the guy, but you can see that, like, they have more competitive spirit just than what they show on the football field, because that's what we want. We want unique competitors. We want unique competitors with a relentless pursuit to gain a competitive edge, right? That's what we do. We're always trying to find a way to get one more first down, right? To score one more touchdown to try to win that game. And we're trying to find people that fit that within our organization.
Awesome stuff. Hey, I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad it's the first time we get to talk face-to-face like this. This is special. I could see why we're back at Texas, all right? I'm going to be every bit as annoying as I've been to everybody here at NBC. Texas fight.
I love
Texas
that,
fight.
man.
Yeah, Texas fight.
Hook 'em, man.
You the man. I really appreciate you coming on Chris Simms Unbuttoned, and best of luck to you going forward, all right, Coach?
Thanks, Chris. See you, buddy. Hook 'em.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Hook 'em. See ya. Thanks for watching Chris Simms Unbuttoned. Hey, just because the season's over, it doesn't mean we're over. We ain't going anywhere. The NFL never dies.
We're staying right here. Hit subscribe. We got every NFL move. We'll react to that. Plus, Chris has got 4,719 draft prospect profiles to do.
Thanks again for watching. Subscribe. You know where to find us. Peace out, homies.